The blue-skinned alien stood in the middle of the United Nations building, looking nervous. Ambassador Veltar had traveled across the galaxy to reach Earth, but now he wished he was back home on Zephyria. The humans around him seemed so small and weak compared to the mighty Krex warriors that were destroying everything in their path. "Please," Veltar said through his translation device, "we need your help. The Krex Empire has already taken 12 star systems. They are coming for U.S. next." General Patricia Hayes sat across from the alien ambassador. She was a tough woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. She had fought in 3 wars on Earth and knew what real danger looked like. This alien was scared, really scared. "Tell me about these Krex," Patricia said. The hologram projector buzzed to life. Images of massive creatures appeared in the air. The Krex stood 8 feet tall, with dark green skin that looked like armor. Their hands ended in claws that could cut through metal. Their yellow eyes showed no mercy. "They heal from wounds in seconds," Veltar explained. "Our weapons barely hurt them. They are perfect killing machines. We have tried to fight them for 2 years, but we keep losing." Patricia studied the images. The Krex looked tough, but she had seen tough enemies before. "What do you want from us?" "The Trials of Kethmer," Veltar said. "It is an ancient tournament. The winner's people get to lead the galactic fleet against the Krex. We want to ask Earth to send your weakest warrior." The room went quiet. Patricia raised an eyebrow. "Our weakest warrior?" "Yes," Veltar nodded quickly. "In our culture, sending the weakest fighter shows respect and humility. The cosmic judges like this. It might help us win favor with them." What Veltar didn't know was that his translation device had made a big mistake. The Zephyrian language didn't have the same words as English. When he said weakest warrior, he actually meant something closer to most adaptable fighter in human military terms. Patricia looked at her advisors. Colonel Robert Hayes, her nephew, was shaking his head. Dr. Amy Collins, the xenobiologist, was taking notes. Captain Lisa Murphy, who knew 7 alien languages, was frowning at the translation device. "Give us a day to think about it," Patricia said. After the aliens left, Patricia called an emergency meeting. The room filled with Earth's top military leaders. They sat around a long table covered with files and coffee cups. "This could be a trap," said Colonel Hess. "Why would they want our weakest fighter?" "Maybe it's not a trap," said Dr. Collins. "Maybe they really think sending a weak fighter is good strategy. These aliens think very differently than we do." Captain Murphy had been studying the translation device. "General, I think there's been a mistake. The Zephyrian word they used doesn't mean weakest in the way we understand it. It's more like most flexible or most adaptable." Patricia smiled for the first time that day. "So they actually want our best adaptive fighter?" "That's what I think," Murphy said. The next morning, Patricia made her choice. She walked into the Special Forces training facility at Fort Bragg. Soldiers were running obstacle courses and practicing combat drills. She found the man she was looking for lifting weights in the corner. Staff Sergeant Danny Rodriguez was not impressive to look at. He was 5 feet 9 inches tall and weighed 180 pounds. He had brown hair and dark eyes. He looked like any regular guy you might see at a grocery store. But Patricia knew better. Danny had been in Special Forces for 8 years. He had completed missions in 15 different countries. He could speak 4 languages, fly 3 types of aircraft, and had never failed a mission. His fellow soldiers called him the Ghost because he could disappear into any environment and complete impossible tasks. "Rodriguez," Patricia called out. Danny put down the weights and walked over. "Yes, ma'am?" "How would you like to save the galaxy?" Danny's expression didn't change. "Is that an order, Mom?" "It's a request, and it's dangerous. really dangerous. Patricia explained the situation. Danny listened without interrupting. When she finished, he asked only one question. When do I leave? 3 days later, Danny stood in the departure bay of the space station. He wore his standard military uniform with no special armor or weapons. The alien ship waited for him, its hull gleaming like a silver pearl. Ambassador Veltar greeted him with obvious disappointment. Danny was even smaller than the alien had expected. But politeness was important, so Veltar smiled and shook Danny's hand. "Welcome, honored warrior." Veltar said, "We are grateful for your sacrifice." Danny nodded. "Happy to help." As the ship lifted off from Earth, Danny looked out the window at his home planet getting smaller. He thought about the aliens who wanted humanity's weakest warrior. They had no idea what they were really getting: the journey to the tournament. World would take 2 weeks. Danny planned to use every minute to study his opponents and prepare for the fights ahead. He had read the files on all 47 alien species. Each one had natural advantages that humans didn't have. They were stronger, faster, or had special abilities. But Danny knew something they didn't. Humans had survived on Earth, not because they were the strongest or fastest. They survived because they could adapt to anything. They could learn, change, and find new ways to win when the old ways failed. The other aliens in the ship avoided Danny. They whispered among themselves about how weak he looked. Some wondered if humans were even worth saving. Danny heard them talking, but he didn't care. He had work to do. In his small room, Danny began planning. He studied videos of Krek's warriors fighting. He memorized the layout of the tournament arena. He practiced meditation techniques to stay calm under pressure. Every detail mattered when you were the underdog. The ship flew through space toward the tournament world. Danny Rodriguez, Earth's weakest warrior, was ready to show the galaxy what humans could really do. The tournament world of Kethner was unlike anything Danny had ever seen. The planet was covered in massive arenas that looked like ancient temples. Purple crystals grew from the ground and provided light instead of a sun. The air smelled like metal and ozone, and gravity was lighter than Earth. S. Danny stepped off the transport ship and immediately felt eyes watching him. Representatives from 47 different species had gathered for the tournament. They stood in groups, talking, in languages that sounded like music, growling, or electronic beeping. "Stay close," Captain Lisa Murphy whispered. She had come as Earth's liaison officer. Some of these species consider staring to be a challenge. Danny looked around calmly. The other warriors were incredible to see. The shards looked like living crystals that reflected rainbow colors. They could change their shape and were said to control matter itself. The nebulans appeared as glowing clouds of gas that sometimes formed into humanoid shapes. The machinists were half robot, half organic, with weapons built into their arms and targeting systems in their eyes. Near the largest arena, the Krek's delegation had set up their camp. War Master Grath stood 9 feet tall with thick armor like skin. His claws gleamed as he sharpened them on a metal post. When he saw Danny, he laughed so hard that other aliens turned to look. "This is what the humans send?" Grath's voice boomed across the plaza. "A little pink creature with no claws, no armor, no weapons? I could break him with one hand." Other alien warriors began to gather. They looked at Danny with disappointment or amusement. A few seemed worried that humanity was too weak to be useful allies. "Perhaps the humans made a mistake," said Zexhai, a shard warrior whose body sparkled like diamonds. "Maybe they sent the wrong person." "No mistake," Danny said quietly. "I'm exactly who they meant to send." The preliminary trials began the next morning. Each warrior had to demonstrate their abilities in front of the judges. These ancient beings sat on floating thrones and watched with eyes that looked like stars. The Shard Warrior went first. HFY touched the metal floor of the arena, and it began to change. Spikes rose from the ground, forming a deadly maze. Then he changed the spikes into a bridge, then into a sculpture of a bird. The crowd cheered as he showed perfect control over matter. The Nebulan fighter was next. Vorthak shifted from solid to gas, passing through walls and obstacles like they didn't exist. He could become invisible by spreading his particles thin and reform behind his enemies. The judges nodded with approval. When Danny's turn came, the arena fell silent. He walked to the center and stood still for a moment. Then he began to run. He moved through the obstacle course quickly, but not spectacularly. He jumped over barriers, crawled under nets, and climbed walls. His time was good, but not the best. Adequate, one of the judges said, but unremarkable. Danny didn't mind. He had learned what he needed to know. He watched how each obstacle was built, how the arenas, systems worked, and how the judges evaluated performance. Other warriors showed off their special abilities. Danny showed them that humans could think and adapt. The first official matches began 3 days later. Danny was matched against HFY, the Shard Warrior. The arena was a circular platform, surrounded by energy shields. Weapons were forbidden, but fighters could use their natural abilities and anything they found in the arena. "I will make this quick," HFY said as they faced each other. "You seem like a decent creature. I will try not to hurt you too much." "Thanks," Danny replied. "I appreciate that." The signal to begin echoed through the arena. HFY immediately touched the metal floor. Sharp spikes shot up all around Danny, trying to pierce him from every direction. Danny rolled and jumped, barely avoiding the deadly points. The crowd gasped as more spikes appeared. HFY was creating a forest of metal blades, each one aimed at Danny's body. It looked impossible to survive, but Danny had been watching carefully. He noticed that HFY had to touch the metal to change it. He also noticed that the Shard Warrior was concentrating hard on creating new spikes. He wasn't paying attention to the ones he had already made. Then he grabbed one of the spikes and snapped it off. The metal was sharp, but it was also thin. He used it like a lever to break off another spike, then another. Soon he had a handful of metal pieces. HFY saw what was happening and tried to change the broken spikes back into part of the floor. But Danny was faster. He threw the metal pieces at different parts of the arena. Now HFY had to focus on multiple spots at once. The Shard Warrior was getting tired. Changing matter took a lot of energy, and he had been doing it non-stop for several minutes. His rainbow colors began to fade. Danny moved closer, using the spikes as stepping stones. He jumped from one to another, getting nearer to his opponent. HFY tried to create a wall between them, but Danny was already too close. "How?" HFY gasped as Danny reached him. "You're really good at changing things," Danny said. "But you forgot to watch what I was doing with the things you already changed." Danny grabbed HFY's arm and twisted it behind his back. The Shard Warrior tried to change his body to escape, but he was too exhausted. He tapped the ground 3 times, signaling surrender. The arena fell silent. Nobody had expected the small human to win, especially not against such a powerful opponent. The judges announced Danny's victory, but their voices seemed surprised. In the medical bay afterward, alien doctors examined both fighters. Danny's heart rate and stress levels were completely normal. He showed no signs of fear or panic, even though he had almost been killed several times. "Remarkable," said Dr. Kenthar, the tournament's chief medical officer. "Most species show extreme stress responses during combat. This human's body remained perfectly controlled throughout the fight." Captain Murphy found Danny in his room later. "That evening, that was incredible," she said. "But some of the alien representatives are saying you got lucky." Danny was cleaning his uniform and checking his equipment. "Maybe I did," he said, "but I'll take luck over fancy powers any day. You don't seem worried about the next fight." "Worrying won't help me win. Learning will." Danny had already started studying videos of his next opponent, the Nebulan fighter. Vorthak could become gas and pass through solid objects. It seemed like an impossible ability to beat, but Danny remembered something his old instructor had taught him. Every strength was also a weakness if you knew how to look at it. Vorthak could become gas, but gas was affected by things that solids weren't. Wind, temperature, pressure. All of these could be used against a creature made of particles. Outside his window, Danny could see the other alien warriors training. They practiced their special abilities, showing off their natural powers. Danny did push-ups and planned his next victory. The galaxy had asked for Earth's weakest warrior. They were about to learn that humanity's greatest strength was turning weakness into victory. Danny's second fight was against Vorthak, the Nebulan warrior. The arena had been changed for this match. Instead of metal spikes, there were now wind tunnels and temperature controls built into the walls. The judges wanted to see how fighters adapted to different environments. Vorthak floated in the center of the arena like a glowing purple cloud. His voice sounded like wind blowing through caves. "I respect your victory against the Shard warrior, human. But you cannot touch what you cannot see." Danny nodded. "You're probably right about that." The match began, and Vorthak immediately spread out into a thin mist. He became almost invisible, just a faint shimmer in the air. Danny stood still, turning his head slowly to listen and watch for any movement. The alien crowd murmured with excitement. How could a solid being fight something made of gas? Danny seemed to be looking for an enemy who could be anywhere and nowhere at the same time. A cold wind brushed past Danny's face. He smiled and didn't move. Another gust came from behind him, and he felt the temperature drop slightly. Vorthak was trying to confuse him by moving around in his gas form. "You cannot find me." Vorthak's voice echoed from everywhere at once. "I am the wind itself." Danny walked slowly to one of the wall panels. He pressed several buttons, and the arena's air circulation system activated. Fans began to blow air in different directions, creating currents and pressure changes throughout the fighting space. "What are you doing?" Vorthak asked, his voice now coming from only one direction. "Helping you move around," Danny said innocently. The truth was more clever than that. Danny had realized that Vorthak, as a gas, was affected by air currents. The Nebulan warrior had to work against the wind to maintain his shape and position. By activating the fans, Danny was forcing his opponent to use energy just to stay in one place. Danny pressed more buttons. The arena's temperature controls kicked in, creating hot and cold zones. Gases expand when heated and contract when cooled. Vorthak's mist form began to swirl and change size as he moved through different temperature areas. "This is not fair," Vorthak protested. "You are using the arena against me." "The arena is part of the fight," Danny replied. "You can use it too." But that was the problem. Vorthak had always relied on his ability to become gas. He had never learned to use his environment as a weapon. Danny, on the other hand, had been trained to use everything around him. The fans were now blowing in a pattern that Danny had memorized. He could track Vorthak's movements by watching how the air currents changed when the Nebulan moved through them. Gas was invisible, but it still had mass and affected the air around it. Danny began to move in a specific pattern. He stayed in the calm areas between air currents, making Vorthak work harder to reach him. When the Nebulan warrior tried to solidify an attack, Danny was ready. "Now," Danny said to himself. He activated the arena's emergency ventilation system. All the fans turned on at maximum power. creating a powerful wind that swept across the entire fighting space. Vorthak, caught in his gas form, was blown helplessly toward the arena's collection vents. "I surrender." Vorthak cried out as he quickly solidified to avoid being sucked into the ventilation system. The crowd was stunned. Danny had won his second match without throwing a single punch. He had simply understood his opponent's weakness better than the opponent understood it himself. Commander Jake Peterson watched the fight from Earth through a communication link. He had been Danny's unit leader for 3 years and knew his fighting style well. "That's our boy," he told General Hayes. "He's not just winning fights. He's teaching these aliens how humans think." Back on Kethmer, the alien representatives were starting to worry. Danny had now defeated 2 opponents who should have been impossible for a human to beat. The Krex delegation was no longer laughing. "How? Is this small creature winning?" War Master Grath asked his advisors. "He uses strange tactics," replied Sub-Commander Throck. "He does not fight like a warrior. He fights like a of thinker." "Thinking is for weaklings," Grath snarled. "When I fight him, I will show him what real strength means." Dr. Amy Collins was watching from the human observation area. As a xenobiologist, she was fascinated by what she was seeing. "Captain Murphy," she said, "I think I understand what's happening here." "What do you mean?" "Look at how the other species fight. The shards use their matter control. The nebulans use their gas abilities. The machinists use their built-in weapons. They all rely on their natural advantages." Murphy nodded. "And Danny?" "Danny doesn't have any natural advantages compared to them. So he has to think differently. He has to use strategy, environment, and psychology. He fights like a human." "Like a human? Exactly?" "We're not the strongest or fastest species on Earth. We survived because we could adapt and think our way out of problems. That's what Danny is doing now." The tournament continued, and Danny kept winning. His third opponent was a machinist named Klexner. The robot warrior had built-in laser weapons and a targeting system that could track movement faster than any. Organic Eye. Danny studied the machinist's specifications for hours. He learned that the targeting system had a brief delay when switching between targets. He also discovered that the laser weapons needed time to recharge between shots. When the fight began, Danny used mirrors from the arena's decoration to confuse the targeting system. He moved in patterns that forced Klexner to constantly retarget, preventing the weapons from charging fully. The match ended when the machinist's power systems overloaded from trying to track too many false targets. His fourth opponent was a void swimmer named Nethquan, who could manipulate gravity and create small black holes. Danny won by using the arena's own gravity generators to cancel out his opponent's abilities, then defeating him in regular hand-to-hand combat. With each victory, the alien observers grew more concerned. This human didn't win through superior strength or special powers. He won by understanding his enemies better than they understood themselves. The semifinal match was announced. Danny would face Sub-Commander Throck, a Krex warrior who had never lost a fight. The alien crowd buzzed with excitement and fear. Finally, the human would face one of the creatures he was supposed to help defeat. Throck was 8 feet tall with dark green skin that looked like armor plates. His claws were 6 inches long and sharp enough to cut through steel. His yellow eyes showed no emotion except hunger for violence. "I will enjoy killing you slowly, little human," Throck said as they prepared for battle. "You have embarrassed you's enough." Danny looked up at the massive warrior. "I'm not here to embarrass anyone. I'm here to win." The arena had been set up as a simple fighting circle with no special equipment. This was pure combat, warrior against warrior. The judges wanted to see who was stronger when everything else was taken away. Captain Murphy watched nervously from the observation deck. "He's so much bigger than Danny," she whispered to Dr. Collins. "Size isn't everything," the scientist replied. "But this will be Danny's hardest fight yet." The signal sounded, and Throck immediately charged forward with a roar that shook the arena. His claws swept through the air where Danny had been standing, but the human was already moving. Danny rolled to the side and came up running. He had studied Krek's anatomy and knew their strengths and weaknesses. They were incredibly strong and healed quickly, but they were also aggressive and predictable. Their warrior culture valued direct attacks over clever tactics. Throke's claws caught Danny across the back, tearing through his uniform and leaving bloody scratches. But Danny kept moving, staying just out of reach of the most dangerous attacks. "Stand still and fight," Throck bellowed. "No thanks," Danny replied, dodging another swipe. The crowd began to murmur. The human was running away instead of fighting. Some aliens thought he was being cowardly. Others wondered if he had a plan. Danny did have a plan. He was making Throck chase him around the arena, studying how the Kreks moved and attacked. He was also making the big warrior use energy while staying fresh himself. After 5 minutes of chasing, Throck was breathing hard. His massive body needed a lot of oxygen, and his aggressive attacks were tiring him out. Danny, meanwhile, was still moving smoothly. "Enough!" Throck roared. He lunged forward with both claws extended. Danny was ready. He stepped aside at the last second and grabbed Throke's arm. Using the Krex's own momentum, he threw the warrior into the arena wall. Throck hit the wall hard and bounced back, but his healing abilities immediately began fixing the damage. He turned to face Danny with renewed fury. "You cannot hurt me, human. I heal too fast." "I don't need to hurt you," Danny said calmly. "I just need to tire you out." The real fight was just beginning. The fight with Throck lasted 20 minutes. Danny moved constantly, making the big Krex warrior chase him around the arena. Every time Throck swung his claws, Danny was somewhere else. Every time the warrior tried to corner him, Danny found a way to escape. But Danny wasn't just running away. He was learning. He watched how Throck moved, how he attacked, how he breathed. He studied the Krex's healing ability and found its limits. The warrior could heal cuts and bruises quickly, but deeper injuries took longer to fix. Danny began to change his tactics. Instead of avoiding all attacks, he started to target specific areas. He hit pressure points that would cause temporary paralysis. He struck nerve clusters that would interfere with Throke's coordination. He attacked the warrior's breathing passages to limit his oxygen supply. Each strike was small, but they added up. Throck was healing from the injuries, but the healing process was using more and more of his energy. The big warrior was getting slower and clumsier. "What are you doing to me?" Throck gasped, swinging wildly as Danny ducked under his claws. "Winning," Danny replied simply. The end came suddenly. Throck charged forward for what he thought would be the final attack. Danny stepped aside and used the warrior's own momentum to send him face first into the arena floor. The impact was so hard that Throke's healing system couldn't keep up. He lay still, unconscious. The arena was silent. The alien crowd couldn't believe what they had just seen. A human had defeated a Krex warrior, something that was supposed to be impossible. Danny stood over his fallen opponent, breathing hard but still alert. His uniform was torn and bloody, but his mind was sharp. He had won, but he knew the real test was still coming. "Winner, the human Danny Rodriguez," the judges announced. The Krex delegation was furious. War Master Gracht stood up from his seat, his yellow eyes blazing with anger. "This is impossible. No creature should be able to defeat a Krex warrior." "Yet it happened," said Judge Kethmer, the eldest of the cosmic judges. "The human has earned his place in the final match." Colonel Robert Hayes watched the fight from Earth's command center. "He did it," he said to General Patricia Hayes. "He's in the finals." "Against Grax himself," Patricia replied grimly. "The strongest warrior the Krex have ever produced." Dr. Amy Collins was studying the footage of Danny's fight. "I'm starting to understand something important," she told Captain Murphy. "Every alien species we've seen has evolved for their specific environment. The Krex are perfect for their harsh, violent world. But Danny ... What about Danny? Danny represents a species that evolved on a world with every possible environment. Humans had to adapt to ice, deserts, mountains, forests, and oceans. We became the ultimate adaptive species." The next morning, Danny was in the medical bay getting his wounds treated. The alien doctors were amazed by how quickly he was healing. Not as fast as a Krex, but faster than they had expected. "Human physiology is fascinating," Dr. Kentha said as he sealed a cut on Danny's arm. "Your species seems designed for endurance and recovery." "We're survivors," Danny agreed. "That's what we do best." Captain Murphy visited him later. "How are you feeling about tomorrow's fight?" "Ready," Danny said. He was doing push-ups in his hospital bed. "Grax is going to be tough, but I've been studying him for 2 weeks now." "What did you learn?" "He's strong, fast, and experienced. But he's also predictable. The Krex have been winning fights the same way for thousands of years. They use overwhelming force and intimidation. And you?" Danny smiled. "I'm going to do something they don't expect." Meanwhile, in the Krex section of the tournament complex, War Master Grax was preparing for battle. He had watched Danny's previous fights and was not impressed. "The human uses tricks," he told his advisors. "He is weak and cowardly. He runs from real combat. But he has defeated every opponent," Sub-Commander Vex pointed out. "Even Throck." "Throck was careless," Grax snarled. "I will not make the same mistake. I will crush this human quickly and show the galaxy what real strength looks like." The night before the final match, Danny couldn't sleep. He walked to the observation deck and looked out at the alien city. Purple crystals provided light, and strange flying creatures moved through the sky. It was beautiful and alien, but it also reminded him how far from home he was. "Having doubts?" a voice asked behind him. Danny turned to see Dr. Collins approaching. "No doubts," he said. "Just thinking." "About what?" "About what happens if I lose. The Alliance falls apart. The Krex keep conquering worlds. Humanity becomes a target." Dr. Collins sat down beside him. "And if you win? Then we become the leaders of a galactic fleet. Earth goes from being a small, unknown world to the most important planet in the galaxy." "That's a lot of pressure for one person." Danny looked at the stars. "I signed up to serve my country. I never thought I'd be serving my entire species." "You're not just serving humanity," Dr. Collins said. "You're representing what humanity can become. Every alien in this tournament is watching you and learning about our species." The next morning, the arena was packed. Representatives from all 47 allied species had come to watch the final match. The stakes couldn't be higher. If Danny won, humanity would lead the galactic fleet. If he lost, the Alliance would probably fall apart. The pre-fight ceremony was elaborate. Both warriors were presented to the crowd and the judges. War Master Grax looked like a living mountain of muscle and armor. When he roared his war cry, the entire arena shook. Danny stood quietly in his simple military uniform. He had refused all offers of armor or weapons. He looked tiny compared to his opponent, but his eyes were calm and focused. "People of the galaxy," Judge Kethmer announced, "today we witness the final battle of the trials of Kethmer. The winner will lead our united forces against the Krex Empire." The irony wasn't lost on anyone. A Krex warrior might end up leading the fight against his own people, or a human might take command of forces that included his enemies. Grax stepped forward. I, War Master Grax of the Krex Empire, challenge this human to single combat. I will show the galaxy the strength of the Krex and claim leadership of the fleet. Danny stepped forward. I, Staff Sergeant Danny Rodriguez of Earth, accept the challenge. I will fight for humanity and for the freedom of the galaxy. The crowd cheered as both warriors took their positions. The arena had been set up as a simple combat circle with no special equipment. This would be a pure test of skill, strength, and will. Captain Murphy watched from the human observation area. Good luck, Danny, she whispered. The signal sounded, and the final battle began. Grax charged forward with a roar that could be heard throughout the arena. His claws gleamed as they swept through the air, each one capable of cutting through steel. Danny rolled to the side, just barely avoiding the attack. You cannot run forever, human. Grax bellowed as he spun around to face Danny again. I'm not running, Danny replied calmly. I'm getting started. The real fight was about to begin, and the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. The battle between Danny and War Master Grax was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Grax fought like a force of nature, his massive claws tearing through the air with enough force to shatter stone. Danny moved like water, flowing around attacks and striking when opportunities appeared. For the first 10 minutes, it looked like Grax would win easily. He was faster than Throck had been, and much more experienced. His claws caught Danny several times, leaving bloody cuts across his arms and chest. Each time, the crowd gasped, thinking the human was finished. But Danny kept fighting. He absorbed the punishment and kept moving, kept learning, kept adapting. He was doing something that no other species had ever done against a Krex warrior. He was studying his opponent during the fight itself. You heal. Quickly for such a weak creature, Grax snarled as Danny dodged another attack. Not as quickly as you, Danny replied. But I don't need to heal if I don't get hit. Danny was starting to understand Grax's fighting style. The War Master was incredibly skilled, but he followed patterns that had worked for thousands of years. He attacked in sequences that were designed to overwhelm opponents with fear and pain. But Danny wasn't fighting like other opponents. He wasn't trying to match Grax's strength or speed. He was fighting like a human, using intelligence, patience, and the ability to adapt under pressure. The turning point came in the 15th minute. Grax made a powerful overhead strike that would have split Danny in half. Danny rolled aside, and the War Master's claws struck the arena floor with tremendous force. For just a moment, Grax was off balance. Danny moved faster than he had all day. He grabbed a piece of broken stone from the arena floor and threw it at Grax's eyes. The War Master instinctively raised his hands to protect his face, giving Danny the opening he needed. Danny rolled between Grax's legs and struck the back of the War Master's knee with precise force. It was a pressure point that would cause temporary paralysis in that leg. Grax stumbled but caught himself. Impossible, Grax growled. You cannot hurt me with such weak attacks. I don't need to hurt you, Danny said, circling around his opponent. I just need to slow you down. The crowd was beginning to understand what was happening. Danny wasn't trying to win through strength. He was winning through intelligence. Every small attack was part of a larger plan. Danny began to target specific areas of Grax's body. He struck nerve clusters that would affect the War Master's coordination. He hit pressure points that would limit blood flow to certain muscles. He attacked breathing passages that would reduce oxygen intake. Each strike was small, but they were adding up. Grax's movements were becoming slightly slower, slightly less coordinated. His healing ability was working overtime to repair the damage, but it was using more energy than the War Master had ever spent in a single fight. What kind of fighting is this? Grax demanded, swinging wildly as Danny ducked under his claws. "Human fighting," Danny replied. The alien crowd was amazed. They had never seen anything like this. Other species fought by using their natural advantages: strength, speed, special abilities. The human was fighting by removing his opponent's advantages. Commander Jake Peterson watched from Earth with growing excitement. "He's doing it," he told General Hayes. "He's fighting exactly like we trained him to fight." "How so?" "He's treating Gracht like a system to be analyzed and defeated. Find the weak points, exploit them, and keep pressure on until the system fails." On Kethmer, the fight was entering its final phase. Gracht was getting desperate. His usual tactics weren't working against this strange human, who seemed to know exactly how to counter every attack. "I am War Master of the Krex Empire," Gracht roared. "I have conquered 12 star systems. I will not be defeated by a weak human." Danny dodged another wild swing. "You're not weak," he said calmly. "You're just predictable." Gracht charged forward in a final desperate attack. His claws spread wide. He tried to catch Danny in a bear hug that would crush the human's ribs. It was a move that had never failed against any opponent. Danny was ready. He had been preparing for this moment since the fight began. As Gracht's arms closed around him, Danny twisted and struck upward with both hands. His fingers found the nerve cluster at the base of Gracht's neck, a spot that would cause temporary paralysis in the War Master's entire upper body. Gracht's arms went limp. He staggered backward, his yellow eyes wide with shock. For the first time in his life, he couldn't move his arms. Danny didn't waste the opportunity. He swept Gracht's legs, sending the massive warrior crashing to the arena floor. Before the War Master could recover, Danny was on top of him, applying a chokehold that would cut off blood flow to his brain. "I yield," Gracht gasped as darkness closed in around his vision. "The human has won." The arena erupted in chaos. Some aliens cheered, others sat in stunned silence. The impossible had happened. A human had defeated the strongest warrior the Krex had ever produced. Danny stood over his fallen opponent, breathing hard but still alert. His uniform was torn and bloody, but his eyes were clear and focused. He had done what no one thought possible. "Winner of the trials of Kethmer," Judge Kethmer announced, his ancient voice carrying across the arena. "Staff Sergeant Danny Rodriguez of Earth. Humanity will lead the Galactic Fleet." The political implications hit immediately. Ambassador Veltar rushed to the human observation area. "General Hayes," he said through his translator, "we must discuss the terms of the alliance. Humanity is now the dominant military power in the galaxy." Colonel Robert Hayes was still staring at the arena where Danny was helping Gracht to his feet. "Dominant military power?" he repeated. "We sent one soldier." "Yes," Veltar said, his blue skin pale with shock. "But that one soldier just defeated our greatest enemy. If humans can do this, what else are they capable of?" On Earth, General Patricia Hayes was dealing with similar questions. Leaders from around the world were calling, asking about humanity's new role in galactic politics. This small, unknown planet had suddenly become the most important world in the galaxy. "Ma'am," Captain Murphy said, approaching with a communication device. "The surrender of the Krex Empire has been transmitted. War Master Gracht is formally requesting terms." Patricia took the device. "This is General Hayes." "This is War Master Gracht," came the reply. "I have been defeated in honorable combat. The Krex Empire surrenders to the human-led alliance." "What are your terms?" Patricia looked around the room at her advisors. They had spent months preparing for war, but no one had prepared for victory. "We want the return of all conquered territories and the establishment of a permanent peace treaty," she said finally. "Agreed," Gracht replied. "The Krex will also provide military support to the human-led fleet. We respect strength, and your warrior has shown us true strength." Back on Kethmer, Danny was in the medical bay getting his wounds treated. "Captain." Murphy found him there, sitting quietly as alien doctors worked on his injuries. "How does it feel to be the most famous human in the galaxy?" she asked. Danny shrugged. "I'm just a soldier who did his job." "Your job was to save the galaxy?" "My job was to represent humanity. I think I did that." Dr. Collins entered the medical bay with a data pad full of information. "Danny, you need to see this." The alien analysts have been studying human military history. They're terrified. Of what? Of us. They're calling humans the ultimate adaptive species. They think we're going to conquer the galaxy. Danny laughed. "We don't want to conquer anyone. We just want to be left alone to live our lives." "That's what makes you so dangerous," Dr. Collins said. "You don't fight for conquest or glory. You fight for survival and protection. That makes you unpredictable." 3 months later, Danny was back on Earth, training the next generation of human space marines. The galaxy had changed around him. Humanity was now the acknowledged leader of the largest military alliance in galactic history. The Krex Empire had become their most loyal allies, impressed by human tactical thinking and adaptability. The training facility was filled with young soldiers eager to serve in the new Galactic Defense Force. Danny watched them practice combat drills and weapons training. Sergeant Rodriguez called out Private Lisa Chun, one of his best students. "What's the most important thing to remember in combat?" Danny thought for a moment. "That your enemy expects you to fight like them. If you fight like a human instead, you've already won half the battle." The alien observers who watched the training sessions were still amazed by what they saw. Human soldiers didn't rely on superior strength or special abilities. They relied on teamwork, adaptability, and the ability to find creative solutions to impossible problems. Ambassador Veltar visited the facility regularly. He had become fascinated by human military tactics and was learning to think like a human commander. "Your species is remarkable," he told Danny during one visit. "You have changed the entire galaxy." "We just showed you what humans are capable of when we're pushed to our limits," Danny replied. "And what are humans capable of?" Danny smiled. "We're capable of surviving anything, adapting to any situation, and finding a way to win when everyone else thinks we should lose." The story of Danny Rodriguez became legend throughout the galaxy. The aliens had asked for Earth's weakest warrior, expecting a humble gesture of respect. Instead, they got a glimpse of what humanity could become.